everybody. Oh, the onions are cooking. How are ya? How many onions do you think you go through in a week? I feel like I go through a ton. I've got some great mushrooms. I'm gonna add those in. And today could easily be a crock pot meal. But I wanna get the onions and the mushrooms a little seared. I am making green enchilada casserole, and this is so easy. And I would very often just put all of these things. Turn down my heat a little bit. I would easily put these things in a crock pot and just let them cook all day long. But being that we're working from home, there's no need to do the crock pot because I can. And this is one of those things that if you had an Instapot, it would work great because you would be able to sear the bottom, get the onions and the mushrooms cooked a little, and then add your stuff and your sauce, and then cook it. But we don't have an Instapot, and we bought one, and I drove around with it in the trunk of my car for probably 3 weeks, and then I was like, oh, back to the store. So, yeah, no, not so much. But that's okay. So I've got onions and mushrooms kind of cooking down, and I know you're not gonna laugh, but here are some super greens. So there's kale, there's spinach, there's a little Swiss chard in there, and we're gonna put that in as well because I want some extra color to and I want to up the nutritional pieces, although this isn't a bad, I don't think this is a bad dish. So I've got mushrooms and onions and some greens in there, and then I'm going with garbanzo beans today because I have more garbanzo beans than I have any other kind of bean. So I would, if this was a normal time when I was just going to pop out to the store and I knew that I could get those other beans quickly, I would put in a black bean. I might put in a pinto bean. I might put in kidney, but I would lean towards black beans, or I would lean towards pinto. But I think I only have one of each of those right now, and so I have maybe 4 cans of garbanzo beans. So I'm going to put the garbanzo beans in, and they're going to soak up the green enchilada sauce, and that's going to be pretty yummy. So that's good. And right now, while I don't have the liquids in yet still, they will get a little bit crispy as the other pieces cook and kind of come together. Can you see that great color? Yeah, that's going to be good. When I lived in Scotland, I had a couple of times where people brought me green enchilada sauce, because that was not something, I mean, the Mexican aisle in the grocery store was maybe this big and had salsa that was like, I don't know, maybe 16 ounces, if 8. And that was enough for what? One meal for me, or one evening's chips. Not chips in terms of French fries in the British sense, but chips in terms of tortilla chips. And so I would have folks bring me enchilada sauce, and then I would be really careful in rationing it to myself. So I don't have to do that anymore. And if I didn't have, I do have a can of green enchilada sauce, but if I didn't have a can of green enchilada sauce, I could use a salsa verde. I could even make my own. I'm not doing that because I have to get a sermon written. So I'm just gonna dump all of this in, all the sauce in, and then I'm gonna rinse it out with water. Not the water I'm drinking, because the water I'm drinking is seltzer water, because I love seltzer water. We have a little soda machine that we don't use for soda, that we use for seltzer water. So I've got that. I've also got a can of diced green chilies that I'm gonna put in. That's gonna spice it up a little bit more. We like spice. We don't like a ton of spice, but we like a little spice. And then I bet you can see one of my favorite items from Trader Joe's, which is the menage a trois, right? The peppers, those are going in. And you might think, oh, Charles, what else? How about some chicken? And this is the part that's just so easy, is that I have 8 chicken tenders that were in the freezer. They're going in the pot. They're gonna release some juices, so that's gonna kick up the liquid kind of base of this as well, plus the peppers as they thaw a little bit, and the mushrooms are still, I didn't cook the mushrooms dry. And when I say dry, you know, there were some questions in my previous mushroom gravy. What does that mean? When I say dry, I mean that I would, sometimes I cook my mushrooms in oil, or I might cook my mushrooms in a little butter, or I might cook my mushrooms in some chicken broth. But so I'm not talking about having the pan dry when I cook them. What I'm talking about when I say mushrooms dry, I mean that I would cook all the water out of them, and so that they would begin to get a little crispy. One of the things that Julia Childs always said was, don't crowd your mushrooms. So even if you have to use 2 pans, if you're doing something like that, mushrooms will crisp, and you'll get more flavor, and you'll get more a better crispiness around the outside of them if you use 2 pans and kind of give them a lot of room to kind of move around in. So I'm just putting, that's my thoughts on mushrooms. So I'm just putting the chicken into the enchilada sauce with the mushrooms, with the onions, and I was gonna put garlic powder in, but it smells so good I don't think I need it. So I think we're gonna just call that good. I'm gonna rinse out a little of the sauce from both containers. So I'm putting a can of, I filled this with water, so this is 7 ounces. So I've got the water in here, which is just kind of rinsing that out. Gets all the extra juices out of that guy. And then this guy, I'm just gonna give him a little toss so I get all of the extra juices out of the enchilada can as well. So I'm only adding 7 ounces of water to the pot, and then I'm gonna let it cook. If I was cooking this in a crock pot, I would cook this on high for 4 hours, because I don't have a ton of chicken. The chicken is frozen, but I don't have a ton of chicken because I've got a whole can of garbanzo beans, and I'm not making a huge casserole. I'm gonna make a smaller, probably, I don't know, 9 by something. And I'll show you that as well. So why don't you meet me back here in about 4 hours. I've got it on medium right now, and I'm gonna wash my spoon because it's touched the raw chicken, and then I'm gonna put it back in its holder, and we're just gonna let it keep cooking all day long. And hopefully by the time I have a sermon written, I will also have green enchilada casserole filling, and then we'll meet back together and we'll put it together. What do you think? Do you have favorite Mexican dishes that you make, or quasi Mexican dishes that you make? The beginning of this dish for me comes from one of my best friends in the whole world for decades, Christy Parsons McLean. Taught me how to make green enchilada casserole, and then I've now just doctored it and made my own. But I learned from her the basics of this, and they still make my heart really happy and make me think about those early single girl days with Christy and I. So friends, let's meet back in a couple hours and see what we have. Hi everybody, welcome back. So, in the magic of recording, look at it, it's done. Can you see? It is gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So, let me see if I can, maybe it'll focus. So it's got these great colors in it, and I am ready. Now I thought I would use a pan, a square pan, and I could, but I think I'm just gonna go ahead and use this old trusty one. And first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some of the sauce into the bottom. I don't wanna have the ingredients, but let's just get some of the sauce down in here so things won't stick and things will be yummy, right? This is actually almost a perfect size for these tortillas. I would usually buy smaller tortillas. If I was gonna use a square pan, I would cut them so that I could use the straight edge for the to make a square, but I don't need to because I'm using a circle. But it is actually, the tortillas are a little bit big, so I'm actually gonna put sauce in a little bit more than I would usually do so that it gets up on the sides as well. Once in a while, I'll make my own tortillas, but I don't have that kind of luxury this week. It's the beginning of the month, and so there's lots of meetings and lots of things going on. So that's all down. You can see it's kind of crusted up on the sides. That's gonna be really good. And now we're ready to go with a layer of our filling. So I've got a slotted spoon so I can keep some of the juice out. I have used 2 medium onions, the bag of mixed peppers, a can of garbanzo beans, 8 chicken breasts. Halfway through, probably 2-3 hours into cooking, I went back and I chopped up the chicken, got the tenders out, fished them out. But I used some big mushrooms, and so I could, if I wanted to make this a vegetarian dish, I could just use mushrooms and replace that for the meat. That and the garbanzos would give you more than enough protein. Now we're gonna put some cheese in. Basically, I'm making a green enchilada lasagna, right? That's really what I'm doing. So that's one layer. Here's the second layer. I'm gonna bake this on a cookie sheet because I do believe that once it really gets going, it's gonna bubble up over. And I probably am gonna make 2 of these and then freeze one. Or I might share them, share it out with a couple of friends. Actually, I think that's one of the things that I will do. So, good second layer, lots of juice. I want to get some more juice in there. I didn't think I was making this much, but it turns out I don't really know how to cook for 2. So we will eat this for a couple of days. And Peyton is really good about eating leftovers. He's not one of those guys that's like, oh, I don't have leftovers, which is good because he actually is really great at mixing leftovers and kind of deciding how he wants to go at something. So I had made just baked chicken thighs and had served that with roasted baby potatoes and green beans the other night. And so we had a couple chicken breasts left, and he kind of cut those up and added some Kingston caviar with that and added that to some pasta last night, and that was his dinner. And I had, what did I have? Oh, I had some mushrooms that I had cooked with onions and a little white wine sauce. I had that with the chicken breast that I had just cooked and done. So I've got one more tortilla on top, and now I'm just putting the sauce on the very top of that, giving that a good layer of yumminess. And then I'm gonna put a little more cheese on top. We're gonna call that good. And then we'll cut this like a pie, really. I might just use the rest of this cheese. I have another block of cheese that I can grade for the other ones. You'll see me use my pie dishes all the time for all kinds of stuff. I think they're a great holder for prep stuff. So I like to get everything that I'm gonna cook together before I even start. So I do a ton of my chopping, I do a ton of my opening of the cans, get all my spices out, I do all of that ahead of time. So that when I'm actually cooking, the only thing I'm doing is cooking. I'm not chopping, I'm not going to the pantry, I'm not going in the cupboard. I just like to have it all ready. So this looks pretty good. I'm gonna bring it a little bit closer. Oh, that doesn't help at all. That camera is kind of funny. It looks really good. I'll show you what it looks like when it's been baked. And we're gonna call that dinner. Okay, friends, see you later.